Jeez. How was your weekend, Dustin?
It was good. I mean, it was mostly based on driving back and forth to Bloomington and watching that game. But yeah, that was good. Yeah. So let's just launch in. Go right back where we were. Like y'all are talking 5-0 on here, Jim.
Oh, Cincinnati. I didn't get to see them play this week. Who did they play?
They played Kennesaw State. So, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I saw them play last week, and they're a scary. They shot themselves in the foot so much. They have the talent. They're one of those teams that can score. They're a second half team like they were last year. And so, no, do I expect Indiana to go into Cincinnati win? No, I'm not saying that I expect it. Can it? Yeah, from what I've seen, when I see App State go to freaking Texas A&M or Marshall go to Notre Dame, and it can happen. Can Bazelite get it together sooner than the last, 10 minutes of the half, and not just him, the entire offense. And that's not Bazelak, it's
Bazelak.
Yeah. Just one boom, boom, Bazelak.
And it's Baze like Blaze.
Yeah. He's been such a Jekyll and Hyde first half and second half guy, but it's not just him.
Well, it's less first half and second half as it is just he can get on streaks. I mean, like, it's odd that we talk about that first game like he was first half and second half. He was last 3 minutes, but I mean they had they were punt interception, whatever else. Not even interception. I mean they were punting a lot in that second half, and then it was the last 2 minutes that he got it together. But I mean, he had some decent drives in the first half. He just gets streaky, and a not small piece of it a huge piece of it on Saturday night was the weather was terrible. The weather was trash, and he did not handle it particularly well. So that's its own issue. And say, okay, did they do enough with the wet ball? Is he got an issue with the wet ball? But I mean, Jim, we were in that press box looking outside and thinking, thank God I'm not there. So, we can only, Tebow says IU outgained IU 239-10, I think, in the third quarter. But he got out second half when it was clean, when it was not raining anymore, and he was on. And it was just like, and it's like that. A weight got lifted, basically. It was like they were playing on a totally different planet at that point. So it was a lot easier to get some kind of traction, to get some kind of, consistency and rhythm, because they weren't getting dumped on, like they were in the first half. It was just a mess, and they just couldn't, he just did not seem to have a good grip on the ball, missed open receivers, just didn't have a rhythm. So there's a couple of things to that, and so that's a thing. So I mean, I don't want to act like, okay, but it's not an inexplicable thing. It's a very tangible, thing to circle and say, okay, you might have an issue in bad weather with this guy. But
also they don't want to show a whole lot.
But I mean, he was just, like they came out in the second half, and once all that was gone, and they were again on kind of a clean track, when they could just outrun people, and it was over. Basically, like once they really got back in a position where they could take advantage of all their advantages, the fact that they were bigger, stronger, faster, it was over. And it was just before then, it was just, running in the muck, and, they just didn't have much answers for that. Once they were out of the muck, they were good.
Yeah, and one of the things, Dustin, that I take away from it, and I think it was an ugly first half. There's no doubt about it. They got things together in the second half. But I think the one positive, even though first of all, you get the win. That's number one. That's the most important thing from the weekend. But I think the second thing is last year, this Indiana team could not run against Idaho. They averaged under 3 yards per carry, and it looked really ugly. This week, they were at least able to run the football. Sean Shivers looked pretty good. He had 155 yards. They scored 3 rushing touchdowns, and they averaged 6.6 yards per carry. So even though I don't think the run game is going to be a strength, I think there's a little bit more reason for optimism in the run game for Indiana this year, as opposed to last year when you're going, if they can't run the football in Idaho, who are they going to be able to run the football against?
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I mean, that Idaho game was so weird, and look, like you kind of have to look back and remember it, because did they have a punt they had a punt block.
Yep.
They had either a defensive touchdown or they really overwhelmed them on special teams. I think Carr went for $120 that game. The yards per carry wasn't great, but part of the whole deal was, they just got out to such a fast lead, because of special teams things. And I think we came out of that thinking we didn't really get a chance to judge this team. And I think such a big deal after week 1, because Penix throws the picks was okay. Well, they got to get Michael Penix right. That's the most important thing that has to happen is he's got to get some confidence. And he only got so much. I don't think he barely even threw the ball, but they were just so far out ahead because of other stuff that it was they weren't chancing anything. So I still using that game as a barometer a year later is tough to do. But to your point, regardless of that game, the yards per carry is a big deal. I think it's really important, especially after game 1 where there was basically nothing. So, it obviously leads at least some level of credence to Walt Bell's argument after week 1, which was, hey, we knew going in that we weren't going to be able to run the ball. That was a hard no. It's Walt Bell's a guy who's really into military history, and it was to talk along those lines. It's sort of like saying this regiment is going to take losses like this. Right. It's just we're kind of sacrificing this one for the betterment of someone else. We have a chance to win over here. We're probably going to lose over here. You guys are going to have a bad day. That's sort of what I think the running game, how they viewed the running game is just okay, you guys are going to have a bad day here, and you're going to have to just live with it. Don't get frustrated or not just frustrated, but discouraged because we're not running the ball. We're not going to. And Walt Bell said, we just poked the bear to say we could do it. He's I've never run passed the ball that much in my life. It was 2-1. I think it was 52 passes to 26 runs. And Walt Bell was just you have to run the ball every once in a while. That's what we did. I didn't expect to win that day. So this adds some level of credence to that to say, okay, give me a regular 4-man front and we'll beat it. We were dealing with 5-man bear fronts, and it was I just had to run the ball a little bit so I could take advantage and keep them honest and keep 5 or 6 in the box so I could then go, fling it on them on the outside. That was my goal, and that's what I did, and that's, why. So this adds some credence to that, and if you're Indiana's offensive line, you feel better about yourself today, and that matters. That's a big deal. That group, especially having lost Matthew Bedford, you throw Parker Hannah in there as a D2 transfer. You needed something to get those guys feeling okay, we're a legitimate, FBS, Power 5 offensive line. We're going to be okay. I don't know if they will. I don't know if once they get back to playing, Idaho didn't start anybody that weighs more than 260. So,
right.
On the defensive front. They pushed around a smaller unit, and you'll take that because you just needed something. Does that prove anything for you? No. But it's something, and you need, I think, when an offensive line has a rough day, you need to get them back to the feeling of mauling somebody again, and they got to do that, especially in the second half, and that is important.
That was my point. Is it's better. Even though maybe you don't learn anything because you're going to play a lot of better defensive lines and defensive teams, the fact that you were able to get some push up front, my mind is again state last year when you got push against zero teams. You at least showed that you can push some people around. And I think that the confidence factor is a big deal moving forward for a team that has honestly struggled to run the football for most of Tom Allen's tenure at IU.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You just got to prove that you can move people. It just makes a difference. Basically, if you're an offensive lineman in general, what you do every day is you try to push a boulder.
Right, exactly.
That's your job. You are dealing with a boulder on the other side of you, and your job is to move that boulder. And basically, when you go out every day and the boulder doesn't move, you think the boulder never will move, and that gets frustrating. That gets in your head, and that makes it hard to get any kind of just momentum and your general push forward. And when you get the feeling of moving that boulder, even though it's a smaller boulder, it's something. So I think that's a big thing for IU's offensive line, was just getting that feeling and just getting that level of belief that. They could do that to anybody, that there were human beings that they could move. And so that's it. It is a really huge deal, I think. And, again, does that mean they'll be able to do the same thing to Western Kentucky? I don't know. Western Kentucky's, defensively, that's not the issue with Western Kentucky. What you're concerned about with Western Kentucky is the tempo and them flinging it on you. But it's, it's something that gives you a good step moving forward. Does that show up when you start playing Cincinnati, Nebraska, and especially Michigan? No. but it's something to start with, and you needed anything along those lines. So that's one of, I think, the big things that you could circle. Okay, this is something that moving forward matters.